call the work session, July the 16th, or July 6th, 2023 to order. There will be no public comments. The only person I have asked to attend is Chief Sisson in case he had any questions about the document. And we have been presented a draft. I don't know whether you all saw it. It was emailed out to you today that Reed had finished up. And so that's kind of where we are at this point. I would open this meeting up for discussion or comments or concerns.
Well, I guess I kind of heard talk, and then I kind of agree with it. I don't feel we, as a council, six or seven of us, should really be telling the chief how to write that agreement or whatever. To me, he's been in a position for a long time, and thanks he's there because we have a lot of respect for him and trust. You know, I don't know what we're going to add that, you know, we can nitpick it to death, but, you know, I don't want to be here all night or next week nitpicking it to death. Just need to have trade faith in the chief to do this correctly, and if not, then we'll address it that way.
And I think the only major change, Mark, was that Reed moved our responsibilities to paragraph 1.
It does appear that he moved, the scope of service to paragraph 1, and it's very broad and simply stated that, the town of Christiansburg and the sheriff will provide 3 officers each to cover the 6 schools in the municipality. So, you know, I'm perfectly fine with that. I spoke to Reed via email. I had no objection or no recommendation for change to his draft. And that gives us the opportunity to work together with the sheriff's department as we have done for 15 years. Whatever objective is there, we've always proven that we're going to work together to make it happen.
But this doesn't mean a thing unless we agree to put the school resource officers back in the school, correct?
Correct.
This is not saying we are going to.
If we do, that's putting the agreement in. And I clearly hope that the SRO decision will be on the agenda for Tuesday night to finalize whatever we're going to do, whenever we're going to do it. Mark, I think you told me, or you may have told us after the meeting, the county has agreed to furnish 3 SROs.
Yes, the county had approved that in their budget 2 months ago to 3 deputies for municipal SROs.
And I think in our agreement, it's the section 3 provided each of the public schools in the town of Christiansburg included at a minimum, and it's got a space there. Reed, you did that. Do we need to list the sites on this contract? The school sites, the schools that we're gonna do down on there.
I wasn't sure, you know, whether you wanted to be specific there as to what the duties of the officers would be. You know, if the sheriff assigns a deputy, do you want them to be in the school during school hours and that sort of thing? Do you want them to be there in the summertime during summer school?
I personally think that's a given. If you're assigning an SRO to a school, they will be there while school is open and functioning. You know, no offense to council, and I think some were offended that I spoke to the sheriff prior to this. Coming up on August, to be prepared to make sure we had our stuff squared away for school starting, because I had a high school SRO that was coming out. I had to run a promotion process for that. So, you know, definitely the sheriff and I have spoken because we feel that we're mutually going to have to handle this responsibility. And it's a situation where, you know, we've agreed to split summer school and split the 6 schools in the municipality. My opinion, just my opinion, we have 6 schools, all 6 covered with a full-time officer or deputy, which is one of the best we can ask for. Every school in the municipality has a police officer full-time.
there's value to us at least covering one elementary school.
Correct. The sheriff and I have spoken about that. Part of our Certified Crime Prevention Community Program, one of our core elements is the DARE program. So the sheriff knows we need to teach a block of DARE to continue to maintain that certification.
What's that, a block? You say a block, how long is that?
So my vision would be that we have a full-time SRO in one of the elementary schools that teach DARE, which would be Olive Branch or elementary. So they can run that school, be at that school, and also teach the DARE.
So as of the beginning of school, that's why it's so important to me to have effective dates in there when this takes place. So let's say this year, will all of the county schools within the Christiansburg limits have an SRO there?
We will have our.
We will have ours,
We will have our three, the county,
which covers 3 schools, but also leaves 3 schools unattended.
and the
At-
county has,
No, at all times, 3 schools will be unattended.
so with the county providing 3 deputies, which they've already approved, with their 3 and our 3, with 6 schools, the vision would be that every school in Christiansburg is covered full-time.
Right, I get the gist of the coverage, but August 1st, because the board approved funding for it, doesn't mean an SRO officer from the county is gonna be in that school.
I believe they will be, I believe.
On the first day of school this year?
I believe as soon as we get through the board and the council's decision, I think the sheriff and his command staff and mine will sit down and say, here's the 6, let's go ahead and build a plan to make this work. And I strongly believe that the sheriff will have 3 to go into the schools the first day of school.
Well, would that be a problem to put this in the contract?
I think we could add that in section 3, that they, the term is in section 5 and starts July 1st. And we could specify in section 3 that they will, have an officer in school when schools are open, beginning August 1st or whatever the date is.
Yeah, 2023, correct, Reed?
Correct.
Yeah.
Your question about the time it takes to hire as well, is that
Well,
part of?
To the board of supervisors, the sheriff said it could be up to 5 years.
Well,
And
yeah.
this, why do an agreement? I mean, you could have a new sheriff, the board who funds these positions, even though Chief Sisson and Chief Hanks wants SROs in there, a new board could take over and say, this is not a priority of ours, we can't afford it, so we're not gonna fund it anymore. So if you can get an officer in there this year, harder, as we had found out, to back out of that.
I think their vision also is to have 3. I mean, when they approved those 3 deputies, they approved them for Christiansburg schools. Sheriff has full intent to put 3 deputies in August.
Well, like Henry said, would they be in there August the 1st?
That's what-
So I haven't spoken.
I would just like it in item 3. I mean, and if it's not gonna happen, then there should be more disclosure coming from the sheriff. Because when you tell the board of supervisors that it could be years before I can get these officers in there, that relates to me what you're telling me, which is fantastic, that maybe he can't do it, but he's telling us he can. And I know everybody has the best intentions, but I would like to get that in this contract.
I think his comments were reflective to putting an officer in every county school to include Blacksburg Elementary. I think his comment was 5 years down the road to make that happen.
To all the
Something's
schools.
changed since our last discussion.
My last-
He's got 3 comments.
But my concern is, it's the county schools in the town limits. That's what this whole contract's about.
Well, we can certainly go in and add to line 3, as Reed suggested, of paragraph 3, beginning August 1, 2023. And I think really it is more detrimental to the sheriff and the county if they can't provide this than to us. So we're willing, assume we're willing to cover our 3.
And I do think that Reed makes a good point on, under 3, we do have to identify that there will be an officer in school.
Yeah.
Because you can say, yeah, we've got 3 assigned to these schools. Well, that could be in their district.
You know, historically, it could be, but historically, the officers, the deputies they have in the schools
Right.
now are there all day.
But you can see
Part
why
of the
we
job.
would want to.
Yeah, and part of that, Henry, though, is verbiage, because everybody knows the true intent, and I get it, it's intent, and it's verbiage for me as well, is that there will be an officer sitting, you know, or working inside the walls of that school, and that's what the county and Sheriff Hanks has said as well, is that he's gonna bodies inside the school, not to patrol in that district, and that's what he's being funded for, is physical bodies to sit and function inside those schools. And I was in a different meeting with him where he implied that he could handle 3 now, not the big scale where there was gonna be 7 and an administrator and all this other stuff, which is why they backed down, as I understand it, to funding 3. But, and asking us to leave our 3 in place. But I acknowledge you just saying that the sheriff, from a different meeting I was in, that he spoke on this issue. He pretty much said he got access to put 3 officers in.
So do you mind putting that in number 3, though?
No, I mean, it just further clarifies.
Yeah.
Is all. But I do think a lot of it is, you know, I don't see us micromanaging the police chief too stringent, just holding the county accountable.
Right, but this is what this agreement does.
No, that's, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. But we're just gonna add a little verbiage in number 3. And I'm not, is this a 1-year agreement or a 2-year?
3 years, I
It's
think.
the initial 3-year, which was
So
another one.
by saying August 1st, you know, should we not say the start of the school year? Use verbiage more along the lines of the beginning,
We
first day of
could go
school.
by the fiscal year that we both operate on, which is July 1 to June 30th.
Yeah, there you go.
I mean, it's a 3-year agreement,
Okay,
renewable each year unless there's a 180-day notice given from one party to the other. Built in there, so.
yeah.
One can't knock out 4 schools.
I can't see the county
At this
coming
point,
forward and saying, well, you know, 2026, we're gonna have enough officers, we're gonna handle all the schools.
We can do that.
I mean,
I mean,
they could do that, but I don't see that happening.
But it's their schools,
Yeah.
it's their responsibility, they could easily come if, well, we don't want them, we're not gonna have them in there, just tell Christiansburg to take a hike. We don't want them there. There's nothing Chief Sisson or this council can do to keep our officers in there, if the county says we do not want you in there.
So what happens August 1st, for us, August 1st, if the county doesn't have their officers in school, what are we gonna do?
We're leaving ours in place.
We're putting ours in, if we put ours in place, we're gonna have them in place. Make sure that the children of our citizens that live in the town of Christiansburg or go to those schools are protected.
For 3 schools.
The 3 schools.
The other
It's
3
the-
are unprotected. Let's just make that clear.
If
We're only
that be-
protecting
if that be
3
the case,
schools.
yeah. Yeah, but that's what we've been doing.
Right, but this whole agreement
Right.
is so that we can, our Montgomery County citizens who live in Christiansburg pay the additional money to have those,
Right.
just those 3 schools covered. But if you talk to any citizen, what about the other 3, which is what this contract is supposed to pick up?
Yeah.
Is those 3. So I guess that's a good question. If they say, hey, we can't have them in there, are we wasting our time now even?
Well, that's my question.
Yes, and that's a great
my
question.
Is that, if we say August 1st, and says we can't do it, are we gonna say, well, we're not gonna do it, or we're gonna leave? I mean, kinda like, well, you said you here, no, but that's a question I have.
But Chief just said that, and Tim just said that Chief Hanks has verbally said he could do it. Now, this is hearsay. I haven't heard it straight from The only thing I've ever heard is what I watched on
I know.
TV, on the, recording that said 5 years. And he may mean the whole thing, but now I'm hearing something different saying he can have them in there. And really, you really should have those probably, and Chief, you know better than me, is having the resource officers, when the teachers show up, right? Because then they create a relationship with the teachers prior to the students coming in. So August 1st would be ideal for that.
So is he gonna have certified SROs or deputies in the schools?
Either one.
I think he probably, if he's like us, he's got a couple of certified school resource officers that are doing other jobs within the county, just like we have. So he has access to, I'm gonna guess two, three, maybe 4 certified SROs that until he can get, if that's what they select to do. And that's certainly not telling him what he's gotta do, but to be able to provide on a temporary basis until he can finish out the role, he's got certified officers.
But it's the same thing, Chief. Make sure you've got 3 qualified officers in our schools. You understand that? You understand those orders?
Yes, sir.
Okay, meeting adjourned.
Well, that's what this contract's about.
Yeah,
Holding
and so
those,
it's the same thing with the sheriff. The sheriff's been told to have 3 qualified officers, deputies, however you want to refer to them, in those schools. And now we're trying to micromanage, how he gets the deputies in there. Your job come January 1st is on the line if you don't do it till we tell you.
His job's done.
Yeah.
He don't matter after all the
yeah,
started.
Mark agrees to that.
They gonna be here anyway.
So, I mean,
Why don't you?
You get the point, right? I mean, we've asked you to do a job as the governing body of this town, and the same thing, I get it, he's a constitutional officer, the sheriff is. But there's still a lot of fallback on that, and Sheriff Hanks has performed well, or he
Chief
would.
Hanks. Chief Hank, Sheriff Parton.
Sheriff Parton.
Sheriff
Parton.
Chief Hanks is our guy.
Yeah, Sheriff Parton has performed well, or he wouldn't keep getting elected, and I don't think there's any reason to doubt that his word, that he's gonna pull this off.
I feel very comfortable that they will have the deputies to put in the schools. I feel very confident that his command staff and my command staff, we will work together to make this happen. There will be times that one of our schools are short due to training or court. I envision us working together. If we're short in school, deputy will cover us. If the deputy's out, we have to cover that school. We do that all the time. So we work daily together, whether it be emergency response teams, crash team, general traffic. We have concurrent jurisdiction. We help them every day in the county. They help us in the town. This is no different for us. This is how we operate and function, and I feel confident we'll make it happen.
Any other questions?
yeah. So I guess I can understand the term that we jump in there, and I think the, termination, of either party, is 180 days, right? Sort of just, it was shorter than that. It was like.
It was 90.
It was 90, it's 180. I'm still concerned with that because is it fair to our Montgomery County citizens who live within the town of Christiansburg when we enact this agreement? And hopefully the sheriff agrees to it as well. I wish the board of supervisors would too, because they handle the funding side of things. Is it fair for, a new political council to come in and say, we're out? These are county schools. I'm a county citizen, I pay, and I shouldn't have to pay extra just because I live in Christiansburg, to have this service for my kids. This is a political board. I would prefer having the termination date being one, at least at the end of the school year. So, because I wouldn't, if we proposed this before and when we did, before the end of the school year, would it be fair for us to say, hey, in November, you have 180 days our officers are pulled out, period. I would rather, since we're doing this for the protection of our students, our kids, it should be at the end of the school calendar year. We should give the county enough time, like we did this year, and not just pull, or have the option to pull in this contract in 180 days. Does that make sense? Like, we still will provide officers till the end of the school year.
I think-
Even doing-
The way
Go
it's
ahead.
drafted, it continues for a term from July 1, 2023 through June 30, 2026, and then renews every year for that same term unless 6 months before the end of the term, you give notice. So it should continue to be a July 1 to June 30th term.
For 3 years, there's no 180-day notice. It's a 3-year contract, and then after that, if we don't renew this in some fashion, it goes on an annual basis unless a 180-day notice is given.
Right, but
Is that the way you read it? Or is that the way you wrote it, whatever? Read?
Yeah. That's what I was trying to get across is, it's the 3 years, there's no termination. After that, it's every year for a full year. But we can clarify that if you want to. We'll put some additional language in there to make sure.
yeah, I'd like to do that, Reed, but, so if, in this contract, if officers aren't in there, or deputies aren't in there August 1st, what happens then? Can you describe that scenario to us, pertaining to the contract specifically, not politically?
Well, they'd be in default of the contract. I don't know that there's any penalty built into this.
Can we withdraw at that point?
Yeah, if they breached it, you could, reject the contract.
It would be, but we are including 180 days in this.
Yeah, but that only pertains after the first 3 years.
Right, but Reed's saying that we're locked in for 3 years.
Yeah, but if they're in default of the contract from the beginning, then it's a null and void contract. Am I correct, Reed?
Yes.
But then what do we do at that point?
We-
Council
I think
to end it again and go through this whole scenario all over again?
No, I think
What are you worried about?
Because I'm a citizen of Montgomery County.
I think we, well, this ain't
And
citizen, citizen comment time, but the,
It will.
but I think at this point, we're troubleshooting something that we wait till we get there. I don't know that we can write anything, we can put anything in writing that's gonna,
I just think it would be right for, if a council turned over to where the majority, unlike now, where the majority is basically leaning towards, regardless of what we do with this contract, they're going back in. And that's fine, you can look at it either way you want to look at it, but I guess my concern was, sort of you would be tying the hands of future councils to say, yeah, you can end the contract, with a 180-day notice, but we are in agreement to keep at least our officers in the school until the end of the school. That make sense? Reed, does that make sense what I just said?
Tanya, I'm sorry, you got something?
You asking me?
Tanya? I don't
I'm
know.
asking you, Reed.
It will continue as it's drafted for 3 years. If you all would like to add a provision that would let you get out after 1 year or 2 years or 180 days or 90 days notice, we can do that. But for now, it's 3 years and then 1 year and then 1 year and then 1 year indefinitely.
Tanya?
Just two
You with us?
questions I have that haven't been asked yet. One question is, does this mean, does this not leave any room for us to discuss any sort of reimbursement for salaries for 3 years if we go into this agreement? And then second question is, what happens if the county says, you know what, we're just not going to sign this agreement, we're not interested? Then what do we do?
He's not signing it anyway.
The only people are signing, 4 people are signing would be the chief of police,
Craig's on it?
town manager, the
Yeah. Shouldn't he?
county administrator, and the sheriff are the only ones that need to sign.
The new one?
Okay. So we're not concerned that the board of supervisors might give him direction not to do this. That's not a concern. Just making sure. It doesn't sound like it, but I just wanted to ask.
Honestly, in days gone by, there's been no need for council or the board of supervisors
to even get involved in these things.
Mhm.
The sheriff and the chief have always, and police chiefs everywhere have worked this out under the signature of the town managers, county administrator, or whomever in that part. It's the first time we have ever, in my 24 years, ever discussed an agreement having anything to do with the chief of police and the sheriff.
Mhm.
Yes, go ahead.
Tony, to answer that question from my perspective would be if the county decided not to sign this contract, I don't know that it changes anything for us,
Mhm.
as long as our police officers are still in the schools, and the sheriff has said he's gonna provide 3, whether we have a working document or not, sheriff and I will work that out. And we're
Okay.
gonna work together to make sure those schools are covered, whether we have a document signed by myself, him, the town manager, or the county administrator.
Awesome. We still have that MOU in place, right?
We have a current MOU that's standing between myself and the superintendent to allow us to be in schools, yes, we do. It was
Okay, got
signed in March.
Okay.
All right. Any other comments or questions?
Yep, how about summer school?
In my initial draft, because I had spoken with the sheriff, we agreed that we would split summer school. Which would allow, right now, during the summer, I've got 2 SROs, one working middle school, one working high school. And those are county kids coming into our jurisdiction for summer school. The sheriff and I have agreed, and he has agreed, that they would help us split summer school where it didn't, the full burden did not fall upon us. Because we normally have high school and middle. If they can take one school, we take one, that frees up an officer for us to work the street or something.
That in here?
It was in my draft, but I don't think it was removed in lieu of other statement that wasn't reasonable. Fine with that, if I can't trust the sheriff and he can't trust me, probably in trouble anyway.
Any other questions? No? We have obviously cannot take a vote tonight because it is a work session, but, I mean, is there a nod of heads that at this point is agreeable to fall forward with this thing?
I think we need to put it on the
Yeah,
agenda for the next meeting.
okay. And we will also, on the next meeting, address the subject of SROs, not including this, but are we or are we not? And that's what we need to be, on there. And Randy had already said, if you notice, he has not sent the agenda out yet. He's waiting on this add this also. So, the nod is that we want it on the agenda just to be formally voted on Tuesday night. All right, Sheriff, Chief, any closing statements?
No, sir.
Tanya, you got anything?
Give us a thumbs up.
Okay.
Nothing
Very
else.
good.
I appreciate the work on this and ready to talk about this on Tuesday. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Reed. If nothing
Good night.
else, gentlemen, we're adjourned.